This is Defiance Daily Dispatches for the Defiant. I am your host, Miles Taylor, and today we are going to talk about how stupidity has become the core governing philosophy of the Trump administration, if it was not already. And we're going to start by telling you about the man that Donald Trump is putting in the job of acting director of national intelligence, what this means for our country, what it says about Donald Trump, and how the political opposition in America should be acting in the wake of this epically stupid decision. And then we're going to talk about how that stupidity expands into Donald Trump's cabinet, because cabinet member after cabinet member today displayed why this administration is incapable of governing this country. And then finally, news on the Defiance front today. The state of New Jersey, its attorney general, and the city of Newark are pursuing legal action to get answers at an ICE facility that has been embroiled in controversy. We're going to tell you about that trailblazing effort today with our guest, the mayor of Newark, New Jersey, Ross Barack, who will be with us. Now, before we jump in, let me just say this. If you're watching us on YouTube, if you're watching us on Substack, you can actually make a difference in growing the defiance in this country by hitting that little thumbs up button, or by hitting that little heart button, or by hitting that subscribe button. I know, I think it's obnoxious when people on YouTube are telling me that all the time. Smash the like button, smash the subscribe button. Doesn't really mean anything. I don't really care about increasing their bottom line. Well, this is different, because when you hit that button, you're helping us grow the defiance in this country, because this organization, if this is the first time you're meeting with us, exists for the sole purpose of fighting back against corruption. That is what we do. And if you feel so inspired by what you see and hear, go to defiance.org. Sign up to get our updates. Consider becoming a member and helping to fund those efforts to fight back against Donald Trump's abuses of power. Now, I want to bring into the conversation two very defiant folks, Maritza and Xander, because we are I was going to say we're a throuple today, but that's not what I want to say. We're a three.
No, don't say it.
We're a three-person team today, and that's how we're going to do the show. I completely threw myself off.
What a start.
I know. No. Okay, reset the program. Oh, shit, it's live. Here we are. You've got three of us today instead of two of us. We have a lot to talk about, and I'm thrilled to be on here with these defiant ones. You guys ready for this ride?
I'm ready. I'm locked in.
Always ready. We're locked. Yeah, this thruple's locked in.
I'm not going to be able to avoid that now. I'm going to go downstairs afterwards, and my wife is going to be like, really? You didn't? I was like, that's just my brain thought three people means. Anyway, Here we go.
Trio.
We're going to go
We're a trio.
A trio. That's the word I was looking for.
We're getting three musketeers in the chat. I'll take that.
I could not find the word trio in my head. That is what is happening. As our producer just wrote in the chat, trio. The original throuple. Okay. All right. Now that we've given you... Go for it.
I was going to say, this give me flashbacks to our first conversation, Miles. I was like, do we have to go live on the podcast? I'm much more comfortable if we like pre-record. You're like, no, live stream. It's how you do things now. This is what happens, Miles.
This is what happens.
This is what happens. All right. Well, I'm going to hope my bosses out there at defiance.org do not fire me after today. So let's go into the first news story before I throw the train completely off the tracks, which is that a week and a half ago, when Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard announced she was stepping down, many of us were wondering not whether Donald Trump would replace her, but which loyalist he would pull from his little circle of sycophants into that organization to run America's spy agencies. And this morning, we got an answer, because if there's one qualification that Donald Trump seems to value above all of the others these days, as Maritza and Xander have long been reporting, it's that he wants loyalty. What have you done for me lately is his question. And today, Donald Trump announced that a man named Bill Pulte would be taking the job of Director of National Intelligence, Acting Director of National Intelligence. Who is Bill Pulte, you ask? Well, he is the current head of an obscure agency called the Federal Housing Finance Agency. And he will now soon go from overseeing that agency to overseeing America's 18 intelligence agencies, including the CIA and the NSA. Now, if Bill Pulte's name doesn't ring a bell to you, I understand why. He has no intelligence experience, no military experience, no national security background. But he does have one thing that Donald Trump really cares about, and that is a willingness to use his office to go after Donald Trump's perceived enemies. We're going to go to MS Now's Jen Psaki for the rundown on that.
But here's the thing. So far, all of the people who Bill Pulte has accused of mortgage fraud have one thing in common. They're all people that the president considers his enemies. In April, Bill Pulte asked the Justice Department to investigate New York's Democratic Attorney General Letitia James to the Department of Justice for alleged mortgage fraud. In May, Bill Pulte asked the Justice Department to investigate another Democrat, Senator Adam Schiff, for alleged mortgage fraud. Earlier this month, he did it again, this time alleging that Federal Reserve Board Governor Lisa Cook committed mortgage fraud. Trump then used those claims as a pretext to fire Lisa Cook from the Federal Reserve.
Guys, if you thought this was maybe something that had a silver lining because this guy who's allegedly been digging through the mortgage applications of Trump's opponents to weaponize them might go somewhere else and stop doing that, ain't too bad, because the news today from Donald Trump, when he made this announcement on Truth Social, was that Pulte would continue running the Federal Housing Finance Agency, of course, becoming the first person in American history to simultaneously oversee the spy agencies of the United States of America and its mortgage applications, which makes no sense whatsoever. And it means that the person who spent the past year trying to weaponize that very obscure part of the government, mortgages, now potentially will have the ability to go weaponize the vast spy powers of the federal government. I'm not terribly comforted by that, Maritza. Did you find any comfort in this announcement?
Well, I have always thought our national security and our mortgage system, they just go hand in hand, right? Like, this is just a no-brainer. I heard this and I knew who Bill Pulte was because of all the times I've reported on him going after Letitia James and Cook and Senator Schiff. So I think this is nuts. And I think that I'll take it one step farther. My grandpa's yelling at me right now for mixing those two up. It's not loyalty, it's fealty. It's not loyalty. The president wants complete fealty and somebody who will not ask questions and will just be there at all costs for his transactional relationships. And that is who Bill Pulte is. And frankly, let me just say this. I just totally misunderstood the jobs of these roles high up in our government because I thought they were really stressful, time-consuming jobs, but I didn't know you could hold so many offices at once. I mean, first Marco Rubio, is handling all of these very important jobs, including White House lead janitor, and now we have Bill Pulte who's going to hold both at the same time too. Like, it's very impressive multitasking.
Yeah, little Marco's got some big britches, doesn't he?
Miles,
Yes.
you said something yesterday about how these guys are going to continue to be experimental with how they abuse and corrupt our system. We've had a pretty good last 3-4 days in this country in terms of the ways we've rejected the corruption the Trump administration was trying to take over our government with. But Miles, you mentioned it. We can't sit on our heels. We have to be as active as they are because they are never going to stop experimenting with ways to coerce and intimidate both the leaders that they're fighting against and the general public. And so this is a good example of that. Housing policy, long history of a tool, to oppress in this country. You think about, the black codes that were used in several neighborhoods and a redlining where black people can get mortgages in certain areas. Banks wouldn't loan to them because it wasn't FDIC insured. So they oftentimes go back to the tape. They check out the tape on oppression in America and go back to old strategies. The abuse of housing policies and access to mortgages is just one of them.
Yeah, and you take a 38-year-old clown car like Bill Pulte and put him in charge of something like the American intelligence community, and there's no limit to the creativity he might be able to have in oppressing Donald Trump's opponents. There's a tiny silver lining here, maybe, which is that already this is starting to piss some people off on Capitol Hill. And of course, it starts with the Democrats. The Democrats are obviously furious about this appointment. Senate Intelligence Committee Chairman Mark Warner said Pulte's selection, quote, speaks volumes about what this president expects from the nation's top intelligence officials. But what's more interesting here, guys, is that one of the most powerful Republicans in Washington seemed to join that rebuke. Senate Majority Leader John Thune said this to reporters on Capitol Hill, quote, we don't need a weaponized DNI. We need professionals over there. According to CNBC, Thune said he is seeking more information from the Trump administration, quote, about the current state of their thinking about that position, unquote. That's not exactly a ringing endorsement for the man that they have just put into this job.
And I saw a clip, I think on Nicole Wallace of Senator Cornyn saying like, hey, well, first of all, we don't have a role in confirming the acting director, but also I haven't seen any evidence that he has any qualifications for that job. Can we, like, did you say he's 38 years old? You guys, this is like, no, he's not 38. Really?
It's hard being an oppressor. It ages you. Thune I don't know if Thune has a spine, but he might have a vertebrae. Now, Thune's been on a little bit of a winning streak the last week or so. Forget, was that the slush fund, Miles, they held the press conference around?
Yeah, it was slush fund. He pushed back. I mean, look, don't forget, folks. I mean, I know that time flies in Trump's Washington, but just 2 weeks ago, Donald Trump infuriated Republican members of Congress by eating their own, by taking out people like John Cornyn in their primaries, by going after people like Congressman Massey. And now Republicans, I wouldn't say they're in open revolt, but they are certainly not willing to carry the foul-smelling toilet water of this man across the nation's capital. And Bill Pulte, believe me, is producing a lot of that foul-smelling water. Just a reminder for our listeners, if you haven't followed this story, Pulte not only is accused of having used his position as the head of the Federal Housing Finance Administration to dig through the mortgage applications of the president's enemies to try to find dirt. He's also accused of covering it up. The inspector general at that agency apparently opened an investigation. The ethics officials there opened inquiries. And guess what? After they opened inquiries into whether Pulte and his aides had improperly accessed those files, what do you think happened? They were fired from their jobs. The oversight officials were let go, and they were replaced by some of the same loyalists who were accused of weaponizing the agency. This guy isn't just accused of using his powers for bad purposes. He's also accused of covering it up. And now he's going to go into the intelligence community where secrets are kept by design. That's a very, very scary thing. I mean, I have long said that weaponizing the spy powers of the federal government is one of the most dangerous things Donald Trump can do because it's harder for us to get transparency. That's going to take us, guys, though, into our second story today, which is the stupidity of this decision is not confined to the compartments of the national security community. It is a pandemic spreading through the cabinet. One of the reasons appointments like Bill Pulte matter is because eventually those people have to go out into the world and defend the administration. And when loyalty becomes the most important qualification, you tend to get a very specific type of public servant. And today provided more of those examples of the stupid supplicants in this administration. And I don't say those things lightly. I say them very specifically. Because while Bill Pulte was being elevated into one of the most important jobs in Washington, some of Trump's existing loyalists were busy making the rounds on Capitol Hill, carrying that foul-smelling water that I referenced earlier. And let's just say they did not disappoint. From Secretary of State Marco Rubio to former Senator and now DHS Secretary Mark Wayne Mullin to Dr. Mehmet Oz. It was a banner day for Trump administration surrogates, explaining why reality isn't quite what everyone thinks it is. So we're going to start with Dr. Oz. Okay. Technically, he's supposed to be overseeing things like Medicare and Medicaid. But today he led a White House press briefing in Caroline Leavitt's absence. From the jump, you guys, Oz was dodging questions, okay, about Donald Trump's health, which once again surged into the spotlight. If you missed it, after the president visited Walter Reed for his third in-person evaluation in 13 months, which I should note is a busy schedule for an annual physical that keeps happening multiple times a year. And when asked why someone in supposedly perfect health keeps returning for additional examinations, Dr. Oz had this to say.
I just wanted to follow up on her question behind me. If the president's in such perfect health, why does he keep going back in for checkups?
I think he likes the results. He does really well. He aces the test every single day. And I do actually believe that he is curious to make sure everything is going in the right direction. He's a very meticulous person in so many ways that are often underappreciated. But for him to want to know all the numbers and keep on top of them, it's the same reason he calls people at odd hours, because something's on his mind and he wants to deal with it. Yes, in purple.
That's
just,
wild.
acing the
That's
test.
crazy.
He likes the results. Last time I was at the doctor at a full panel, I loved the results. I'd like to go back and have more blood drawn. It was
Keep
so
telling me I'm
it was so
5'10".
great.
That's pumping me up. Just keep hitting me with that measurement. What are we talking about?
Come on,
What are
go
we doing?
play. Go play solitaire online. You want
It's not the New York Times crossword. Totally.
one suit
Well, we
solitaire.
know he won't ace that. It sounds, the only thing he can ace is basic tests. This is why, I don't think Dr. Oz is wrong necessarily. Look, I think there are hidden things about Donald Trump's health, but think about how often Donald Trump brags about that cognitive test, that his biggest accomplishment is that he can identify a camel on a cognitive test. He feels really proud of himself that they keep giving him these tests and he keeps acing them.
It does feel good to ace things that are difficult to complete. So maybe he does need to go have those cognitive tests because he's like, yes, I got the camel again. Maybe we just send him we just send him a game of matching, right? Just some matching cards that my son played when he was 3.
You know what's crazy about all these responses is that before that happened, they got together before the press conference. He goes, they're going to ask why he keeps going to the doctor. And that was the best answer they came up with. A group of people hired to answer the press's question. And this was the most predictable question. Why does the president keep going to the doctor? They landed on because he likes the results so much. I just would love to. There's some version of The Office where you're behind the scenes watching these meetings. I would love to have that version. One day.
Well, if you guys thought that one was bad, then there's Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who was on Capitol Hill today answering questions. Most of the time in the hearing he was at, he was talking about the administration's foreign policy. But one exchange in particular caught my attention, and that's when Rubio had a full-blown crash out. Take a look.
To remind the American people that as the Secretary of State, your main duty as America's chief diplomat is to maintain our relations with foreign nations. This is why I was shocked to see that you were at a party with President Trump in Miami instead of accompanying Vice President Vance to Pakistan for negotiations.
What party was I at? I was at a party?
Publicly reported, and there's photos there.
But what party? No, but you're going to say that. I'm going to answer it. I'm going to answer that question because that's an absurd statement. I was not at a party.
Finish my paragraph. He can answer.
People are going to slander me. I'm going to answer it. You're 100% inaccurate and 100% wrong. Here's why. Number one, the Vice President of the United States was there, and he wasn't confirmed by us, and he was elected by the American people. Okay, he is the second in line to the presidency of the United States. He was president. Mr. Witkoff is the president's envoy for negotiation for peace deals. Mr. Kushner is a private citizen that serves as an advisor on these functions. They were the team that we sent to Pakistan. I was not at a party. Where I was is next to the president. Because in the midst of those negotiations, I was in communications with them. And in fact, I think there is media reporting from that evening on how on multiple occasions I went into a back room, I came back out and spoke to the president and was constantly updating him. Okay, I'm the National Security Advisor and Secretary of State. I was co-located with the president in the midst of a high-stakes negotiation so that I could immediately inform him about events occurring halfway around the world. I was where I needed to be at that moment because we had a very capable team on the ground in Pakistan, led by the vice president.
Hold on. I was where I needed to be at that moment. Do we have pictures of where he was? I think we might. He was where he needed to be. Do you know where he was in that picture? He was at a UFC fight where he wanted to be in that moment. He was
a lot of UFC
was
fights attended.
That wasn't a party. That was a fight. Get it straight. And guess what? Fights are so important that we are building an arena on the South Lawn of the White House. So how about that? Like, that's not a party. This is official government business because we have a full cage fighting arena at the White House now. So get it right.
It's incredible how good all of them are at victimhood. It's like, that's like the first. Miles, did they try to onboard you when you joined the first administration? They're like, look, here's how you be maximally aggressive and defensive if you ever find yourself having to defend the administration. They kind of have a similar playbook. It feels like they're getting training, like uniform training from somewhere. Because Rubio used to have this like presence.
Where it's coming from. The training they're getting is from their preteen children. This is what it sounds like when you catch your kid in a lie, or you catch your kid saying something that's not entirely truthful. That it's that kind of like, I hate to use the word defiant nature, but it is. It's just like, it reminds me of like they watch Step Brothers and they're like, how did Will Ferrell act toward their parents in Step Brothers? That's how you're gonna act out there when you're testifying before the United States Senate.
Well, you guys, if you thought the stupidity of trying to say being at a sporting event was not a party, it was official diplomatic work, then you're going to love this one too, because another Trump cabinet secretary was grilled today. DHS Secretary Markwayne Mullin, who was asked some very simple questions. Senator Chris Murphy tried to get Mullin to answer basically whether he would abide by court rulings. Courts have ruled again and again that the Trump administration is violating the law when it comes to its immigration policies. And Senator Murphy wanted to know, will you honor the rulings of federal judges? Take a look at what he had to say.
It's an easy thing to say. Yeah. Will you or will you not implement court orders?
If we didn't think courts were politicized, then I would probably be able to answer that. But we see courts over and over again that use their bench for their political opinion, not just the rule of law. So and we can see that because we see how many times they're overturned.
I didn't say court orders you obey based upon whether you believe that
what I said
to be
politically. Don't put words in my mouth.
That's what are you saying then?
What I'm saying is we'll enforce the law and we're never going to break the Constitution.
You just said that you will not follow every court order because you
Chris or Senator, don't start putting words in my mouth. That's not what I said. I said I will never break the Constitution. We're going to enforce the law.
Will you implement court orders when they tell you to stop an action?
You're making an assumption on court orders I haven't seen.
Will you or will you not?
I am going to enforce the law and I'll never break the Constitution.
I think, listen, if you're a Republican or a Democrat on this committee, you should be really freaked out.
We should be really concerned about the rulings that come out of the courts and how often they get overturned.
It falls apart if you are telling me that
they fall apart when you have a judge that makes a political opinion from a bench and they're outside the law too. Not all judges are above the law, but sometimes they think they are. That's why we see lower courts get overturned by higher courts constantly.
Well, just guys, to put a little bit of data on this, even though Markwayne Mullin is doing the thing that the president does all the time and saying it's these liberal judges ruling against me and I can't, abide by liberal judges, 72% of the Republican appointed judges who have ruled against this administration, 72% of Republicans who've ruled on challenges against this administration have ruled against Donald Trump, right? It's not just liberal judges. It's people appointed by Trump himself, George W. Bush, Ronald Reagan. Those are the people almost 3 out of 4 times who are ruling against these guys.
Okay. First of all, that answer was insane. Like, it's just like, obviously it's a no. It's a no for you then. All right. But second of all, he says, we're never going to break the Constitution. I mean, should we tell him about everything ICE has done? Should we tell him about all of the due process we've been missing in so many of these instances when people are just being thrown into detention or going through and having unreasonable search and seizures? Like, should we tell him about all those times when they've already broken the Constitution? Give me a break.
Yeah, if you are looking for an answer to how many times, the answer is at a bare minimum 10,000 times. I will not stop using this data point. 10,000 federal rulings have been handed down on immigration alone in the year that this Trump team has been back in office, ruling that they have illegally and unconstitutionally detained people. So Mark Wayne Mullin, who sat there and said, we're abiding by the Constitution, is not disproven just once or twice, but more than 10,000 times by actions of the department he leads. This is stunning to me, you guys. I mean, Maritza, if the numbers were like that when I was in government, I can't imagine not being fired from that job. It's extraordinary to me that people stayed in those jobs as those numbers were piling up.
It's extraordinary. And imagine if somebody, just like a normal person who wasn't in the cabinet, just walked in and said, I don't like your ruling. I'm going to ignore it. I'm going to ignore it because you're an activist judge. I mean, imagine if anybody tried to say this. It's just, it's insane.
It is truly insane. Well, I want to take us, Maritza, into another story here because it's sort of perfect timing.
Xander go? Oh, there he is. Okay.
It's sort of perfect timing that Mark Wayne Mullin responded the way he did, because it looks like another lawsuit is gonna be headed his way. Since early last week, protests and hunger strikes have erupted around the ICE prison camp Delaney Hall in New York. Remember, this is one of those temporary facilities that DHS rapidly spun up last summer to expand detention capacity, part of its early effort at a new secret prison network. And now, while Secretary Mullin and DHS have dismissed the hunger strike as a political stunt, officials in Newark, New Jersey are making a very different argument. If conditions inside Delaney Hall are as safe as the administration claims they are, then why won't they let inspectors in? Why won't they just prove it? In fact, last night I was on our friend Chris Cuomo's show on News Nation, and get this, guys, he had said to Tom Homan, right? White House border czar Tom Homan was on his program. He'd said to Tom Homan, Tom, why don't you let members of the news media into these facilities? And Tom said, name the facility and I'll go there with you. Not, well, I'll let you in, Chris Cuomo. I'll go there with you. And so without missing a beat, Chris said, let's go to Delaney Hall. And Tom Homan said, fine, we'll do it. Guess what they emailed Chris Cuomo last night? The White House emailed and said, sorry, we can't make that happen. Maybe at another date down the road. They punted. They won't let reporters there. They won't let anyone in there. And so here is what happened today is New Jersey said, nah, we're from New Jersey and we're not going to deal with talk to the hand. And so the New Jersey Attorney General, Jennifer Davenport, announced that the state is suing the company that runs Delaney Hall, the Geo Group, the private company that operates that place, after those state health inspectors say that they were shown the hand and told they couldn't come into parts of the facility, including medical units and sleeping areas and bathing facilities, all of which have been reported to be part of the filth that is allegedly Delaney Hall. Worms in the food. The allegations are truly disgusting. At the same time, Newark Mayor Raz Baraka announced the city is expanding its own lawsuit and is now seeking to shut the facility down entirely if inspectors continue to be blocked from conducting a full review. A pretty bold thing to do. And if conditions inside Delaney Hall are as safe as they say, why wouldn't they just comply? Why wouldn't they just, let these lawsuits drop and just open the doors and bring people in to take a look? But that is not what is happening. So I think we're going to be joined shortly here by the mayor of Newark. We don't have him here with us yet, but you guys, I think they are in about the strongest possible position they could be in legally here. And what's also telling to me is that people like the Newark mayor are threatening they'll take their own actions if the federal government doesn't respond. And Maritza, we were talking about this earlier. Eric Taylor in Social Circle, Georgia, as an example of a local official saying, you may be the federal government, but David has some tools too, even if Goliath has all the power. What do you think of that? And if you could remind people of that example, because I think it might be something that we're bringing up in the coming days if ICE does not respond.
You know, it really is. It's this bravery that we are seeing, like with Eric Taylor in Social Circle, Georgia. Let me remind you, a town of 5,000 people voted for Trump, I think about 73% in favor of the president. And it's where DHS purchased one of those warehouses to be turned into an ICE detention prison. And they were going to put 10,000 people there. Well, Eric Taylor, he was he's in the twilight of his career. He was trying to build back this town, get some infrastructure, get water, sewage treatment improvements, all of these things for this little town. And DHS comes in, and all of a sudden he had no idea what they were going to do. And he didn't know what path would work, but he didn't back down. And he eventually just went over and locked the water meter. I mean, as simple as that. And I haven't spoken to him in the last week or so, but when we talked to him here, Miles and Xander, he said, I remember asking him, like, have you heard anything? Has the federal government pushed back at all? He said, no, because that's the thing. They think everyone will just roll over, and they like things that are easy to do. So when people start to push back, we see that it works. So I am glad to see this pushback. It's part of what happened in Minneapolis. I don't think, my hometown, I don't think the federal government anticipated the amount of people who were going to be engaged in 30 below temperatures to say, no, you are not doing this here, not the way you're doing it. So I think that these are really great examples that one person can make a difference. Everyone should try. And you just cannot say, oh, well, it's the federal government. What am I going to do?
Yeah. I mean, I could talk about this story for days, because I'll tell you, for anyone out there who doubts these allegations, who says, it's probably not as bad as it sounds inside the facility, or maybe this is a one-off. Let me tell you, the folks I most often heard complaints from about CBP facilities and ICE facilities when I was at DHS weren't necessarily the migrants themselves or their lawyers or the immigrant rights groups. Guess who it was? It was the CBP agents and the ICE agents. There were agents of DHS who constantly, when we did visits, I'd ask them on the sides, what do you think about this? You think there's enough room at this border facility? And they'd say, no, this is shit. We don't have an adequate facility. This place is not suitable for children. This place is not suitable for long-term detention. We don't have enough money. We don't have the funding to meet the standards. If the people on the front lines are saying the facilities are inadequate, do you doubt for a second that the inmates themselves are telling the truth about the conditions they're forced to be in? And we're talking about, in those cases, it was often permanent facilities that had been there for years that were deemed inadequate. It does not shock me in the least that this blitz of creation of temporary facilities for detention or new places and warehouses that were retrofitted would be reported to be subpar at best and more likely in violation of human rights norms.
We should keep in mind the goal of this administration is not to have these systems function well, right? The neglect is intentional. This is not only to cause suffering and trauma to these families, but also to serve as a deterrent for future immigrants to not come here, because this is a possibility. You'll be locked in a room and starved or given toxic food and tortured. That's why this is. And it's just important to keep that in mind, because sometimes, I think people who are further away from our incarceration systems look at them and say, hey, this is so dysfunctional, or this is so inefficient. They're designed to create these outcomes. They're designed to torture people. That's the goal here. That's the goal for this administration. So it doesn't surprise me at all that they're denying any good actors from visiting. The thing I will say that I am proud of, and that I'd love to see more of in the future, is sometimes after a hurricane, you see us mobilize resources so quickly because there's suffering going on, and FEMA will come in, and the National Guard will come in, and will act like human suffering is intolerable. But then sometimes when that human suffering is systemic, we don't mobilize quite that fast. We take our time. We show up, give a speech, go away from it. We allow suffering to continue within our systems all the time. And so I hope one of the things we're learning is we can stop systemic suffering just like we can stop suffering from a hurricane. If the mayor gets involved, if the governor gets involved, if the state says and the city say, we don't fucking tolerate this, that you can mobilize to change it, even if it feels impossible because someone like the federal government is operating the facility. And so I hope we keep that muscle in this country, in this moment and past it.
I always think too, I mean, all the stories that we know about, right? We know about, like, I always think of little Liam Ramos from Minneapolis, the little boy in the blue bunny hat and the Spider-Man backpack.
Yes.
And that's a name that we know, right? We know Kilmar Abrego Garcia's name. We know these names that had a lot of media attention on them. And for everyone that we know, think of how many more people there are, people who are going through even worse, and the stories that we're not hearing about. And that is why this matters. That is why oversight matters. That's why the inspections matter. It's why they should be allowing journalists in. And I mean, it tells you absolutely everything that Tom Homan will say, oh yeah, let's go to Delaney Hall. And then within a few hours, oh, we can't make that happen. Well, why not? Let's hear an actually acceptable reason for why you can't. Because if you're doing everything by the book, there's literally no reason why a journalist, especially someone like Chris Cuomo, give me a break. Like, you should open the doors, shed some light on this, show us what's happening so that we can actually see for our own eyes. It's just so much. It's so gross. It's so gross.
Well, and Tom Homan knows better. I mean, I worked with Tom Homan for years. He was there under the Obama administration. He was a career official that the Trumpers happened to take a liking to in the first administration and have clearly elevated in this administration. Tom Homan knows better. When this type of thing would happen, when I worked at DHS, people would say, we need to clear it up as soon as humanly possible, because the secretary, whether it was John Kelly or Kirstjen Nielsen or the acting, Kevin McAleenan, they didn't want to be tagged with having covered up abuses inside of facilities. So they would say to staff, we need an answer now. Get people there, open the doors. Like, let's find out what's actually going on. Let's send folks to investigate these claims. It doesn't sound like that's happening in this administration. It sounds like literally the opposite is happening, is they're falling all over themselves to avoid any transparency.
And here's what came into my mind when you said that, oh, well, Tom Homan told Chris Cuomo, let's go, that's fine. In my head right away, I was like, well, of course. Tom Homan's going to call, they're going to clean it up, and he's going to take Chris Cuomo there, and there will be no problems. The fact that they can't clean it up in time for Tom Homan and Chris Cuomo to go there and make it look acceptable tells you the extent of this. The fact that it's so rampant that they can't, fix it for optics within a matter of a couple of days tells you everything you need to know.
It's such a good point. Oh,
Jinx. I was saying the same thing. It's such a good point. It's like, because it's in there. It's like the Epstein files. It's in their best interest to release all the files. It's in their best interest to show everyone it's okay in there. And the fact that not not only with advance notice, they can't clean up to an acceptable state to present it, knowing the damage it will do by not presenting that or by not releasing the files is an incredible, admission in and of itself, Maritza.
Well, we were supposed to be joined by Newark Mayor Ross Barack. I think there might be a technical issue. We're going to keep moving along. If the mayor joins us, we're going to jump back into this conversation. Stay tuned, folks. We're going to see if we can get him here on the line. In the meantime, I don't want to miss out on telling you who today is joining the Defiance in this country. And I think this is very important to do every single day. That's why we do it every single day. That's why it's the only daily segment on this program, is because the Defiance keeps growing in this country. And today, in this segment, we talk about someone named Molly Lee, a popular soap maker who seems to have a secondary occupation in medical advice, shining an important light on TIOS, which is something that affects thousands of Americans every day. Let's take a look at what that is.
If you pumped your fist and yelled, "Hell yes," when a judge ordered this administration to take his name off the Kennedy Center, you may have contracted Trump-induced obscenity syndrome. Symptoms can include yelling, "Holy fuck," after filling up your gas tank, or cackling with glee after hearing that the lineup for his big patriotic Great American State Fair started backing out almost immediately. Even Milli Vanilli said they didn't sign up for it. Milli Vanilli has goddamn standards. Experts confirm that the DNC is coming down with TIOS after it stated a simple fact. While there is currently no known cure for Trump-induced obscenity syndrome, symptoms can be managed. Download the 5 Calls app. Join other potty-mouthed activists. We're going to get through this fucking mess together.
I love her. Molly Lee,
Hilarious.
welcome to the Defiance. Finally, someone showing some representation for all of us who've been struggling with these symptoms now have a name. So, Molly Lee of TIOS fame, welcome to the Defiance.
I've been feeling like we've been struggling with it lately. We've definitely been a little more potty mouthing lately. Waj came in. Waj needs to see that because Waj was having a moment on Friday last time he came in with us.
Oh, I missed that. Well, John Tester gets called out a lot for swearing on our podcast in our show. And so he tries to rein it in, but people say, no, we want more. We need more John Tester swearing. And then there's the other side that says, no, we should take it down a notch. So I don't know where you stand, but either way, be you do you.
That's right. That's right. I one thing I want to put out there just into the ether. I doubt Molly Lee, who made that, is watching right now. But if she is, we would like to have you on the program because we think you're hilarious. And wink nod over to our producer. Maybe we can slide into Molly Lee's DMs and see if she wants to join us on Defiance Daily. And maybe we can even get the bleep sound effect up.
Maybe she wants to be in the thruple.
No. We're never going to escape it.
Rita, now she's never going to join us.
That's not the intro email you want. Hey, how you doing?
Hey, you want to join us?
What I love the most is anyone who joined us live who wasn't here at the beginning of the program is like, what the hell?
What is happening? Well, I did suffer from TIOS this weekend because I drove to the Gorge in the middle of Washington State. It's actually in a town called George, Washington, which is still every time I hear it. And I filled up my gas tank. Gorgeous George. Yeah. And I went to the Brandi Carlile concert festival over the weekend. It was fabulous, but I filled up with gas. And it was for 1 gallon of regular unleaded right outside of the Gorge Stadium, so maybe a little bit higher than normal, was $6.15 a gallon.
Oh, that's the highest I've heard so far.
And I keep thinking about Secretary Duffy, Sean Duffy, saying that, road trips are affordable for everyone. No, they're not. No, they're not. I definitely was swearing.
$6.15 is rough. That's the high. My truck, I don't know what the per gallon was, but it was the first time it passed over $100 to fill it up. It's usually around like 60 or 70. The last
Well, we
time
have
I
a
was at the
great
pump.
idea. We have a great idea in the chat. Is CKC and Stephen Russell both suggest a swear jar to fund
nice.
Defiance.org. We should think about how to operationalize that. Obviously, as individuals, we will bankrupt ourselves if the number is too high. But maybe there's a way we can crowdfund a swear jar for Defiance where, a well-timed F-bomb helps us fund a great cause. CKC, Stephen Russell, we're open to ideas. I mean, look, I'm willing, obviously, to throw down. I've put tens of thousands of dollars personally into this effort since we launched last October. I am happy to figure out other ways to be stuffing that swear jar, but I really like the idea of a swear jar. Maybe we have like a link to a tips jar sort of thing that if people want to cover us for the swear jar.
Oh, that's nice.
Help us.
For the members we might lose by being so profane. If other people can support us more.
Right. Right.
Help us offset the losses, by the people whose ears were burning.
There we go. We got there. We figured out a format for this thing. I didn't love just us paying for it. That was my original interpretation.
I know.
Yeah.
It's just going to work out.
If other people are paying for it, though, like, watch out, folks. Get that bleep button ready. It's just going to be F-bombs flying.
Vicky says in the chat, we're going to need a bigger jar, which I think is right. Well, let's take some questions from Defiance.org members. And Sunil, great to see you as always, says, how many, unfortunately, functional detention centers are there now? That's a great question. Between ICE and CBP, I don't know if I have the exact figure. Maybe Xander or Maritza has it or can look it up. What I can tell you is the overall capacity is the administration has wanted to go from about 75,000 in terms of detention capacity to between 175,000 and 200,000, which would put DHS in the position of running the largest prison system in the United States of America, bigger than the entirety of the federal prison system.
I pasted our partner Project Saltbox's data tracking link where they have, I can share the screen, but they have a great
Saltbox, I think, has a lot of the warehouses and detention facilities, but overall, including pre-existing facilities like Dilley in Texas, I think we're in the low hundreds in terms of different facilities. And, one of the things that the Department of Homeland Security has done since it was created, like the federal prison system, is move from managing its own centers to outsourcing it to private companies, like we're seeing in New Jersey. And it looks like that number is about 200 detention centers. And what has happened, the effect of that is, sure, maybe they're less expensive on a per capita basis to operate than if the federal government is operating them. But then you get all of those unintended, or in this administration's case, intended consequences of shittier food service, worse conditions, cramming people in because the focus is profit. The focus is how much money can they make? How many more inmates can they bring into the facility, since many of them are paid on a per inmate basis?
And I know that a lot of the warehouses that I've reported on, they have not opened yet. Like the one in Social Circle, Georgia, nothing has happened since I was there. That's what Eric Taylor told us. Now, the city manager. And when you look at the scale of those buildings, I mean, they were estimating it was going to take 6 weeks to build that out. This 1 million square foot warehouse, just concrete warehouse, to build that out to be suitable to house 10,000 people. And so all those things came up, Miles. How are you going to provide that meets the standards that we need to meet to make sure that it's a humane place? You can't. But that's kind of also another really great point that came up in my reporting on those warehouses, is that there's this irony that people think, oh, well, we need to lock people up who come here illegally because we don't want them, we don't want them leeching off of our system. Why should they get free healthcare when I don't? And the irony is they don't get free healthcare until you do lock them up. Because then once you do lock them up, you are supposed to provide healthcare for them. So it's a whole thing. And then how do you do that effectively for that many people with these private third-party companies who have no idea what they're doing on that kind of scale?
And as a reminder, these are mostly people that are attending their court dates. There's no reason to incarcerate these people. Like when we talk about humane incarceration, there's not really a version of humane incarceration. You know what happens when people are incarcerated for even 5 days pre-trial? They lose their jobs. Sometimes they lose their kids. There are terrible things that happen when you get swooped out of your life and held in a cage away from your family. Families lose their only source of income often, and then those families lose their homes. They're oftentimes funneling money they don't have back into the incarcerated system so people can buy food. They're paying for phone calls. I've had many families of incarcerated people say they had to choose between phone calls to their loved ones or energy at their house or having the lights be on. And so this is the type of place you put families in when you incarcerate people. And so, that's egregious at all times, but especially egregious when you have a bunch of people that were already going through our court system and doing what they had to do to be processed in a system where we failed them. We took 7 to 8 years to figure out if they can or cannot stay in this country instead of 10 to 15 days. They started these lives. They built these families. And so there's like, I don't want to lose the thread, because we should fight for humane conditions. But on top of that, we should fight for minimizing the amount of people that actually need to be held in a cell in order to process people through a system.
It's such a powerful point because we're talking about folks who are not a flight risk and who are not violent offenders. And if you're looking for data on that, well, I'll just point you to the federal government's data. Is the past few months between 70 and 90% of people in ICE detention have no criminal record. Okay, so to Xander's point, you're taking people with no criminal record and you're putting them behind bars. And add on to that the fact that tens of thousands of them have been found by judges to be detained illegally, and you are systematically committing human rights abuses, illegally holding people. And even if you say, well, it's remedied because once the judge makes the ruling, they're let out. No, as Xander made the point, often these people and their families are suffering irreparable harm, losing their jobs, losing their livelihoods, losing their stability, and the stain forever that stays with them. This is why you got to get it right. And these guys are trying to get it wrong by design.
And the trauma. I mean, even if, I think about, well, if you're a citizen, we'll work it out. And we'll figure it out within a few days. I mean, this is a traumatic, horrific experience. And I just to think about everything that these families are going to go through for the rest of their lives because of what is happening in this country today.
Diana Boyd asks in the chat, actually, sorry, before I jump to Diana's question, Jessica asks a question tied to this. Does Donald Trump get a kickback for all of these prisons? I mean, look, the short answer is no-ish. The long answer is some of these groups like Core Civic and Geo Group who are running these prisons, surprise, surprise, were significant contributors to Donald Trump and his presidential campaign.
That's it.
But there's a bigger open question here, which is the Inspector General of the Department of Homeland Security has opened an inquiry into Kristi Noem, her former chief of staff, Corey Lewandowski, and other officials, allegedly, into the awarding of contracts related to ICE's secret prison program. And I suspect one of the things that the Inspector General is looking at is, why was the money changing hands the way it was? Why were companies who had never run private prisons winning these multi-billion dollar contracts to run private prisons? Why was the federal government paying over the asking price for those facilities? Why was the federal government awarding contracts beyond the estimates of what were needed to run those facilities. There was a whole bunch of sketchy behavior that hopefully we will find out more about as this investigation progresses.
I'll add on to that. Why was the federal government purchasing properties to begin with when they're trying to actually reduce the footprint of federal properties that are owned, and that the GSA would actually tell any agency liaison that we should lease a property if we need that property. Also, the fact that some of these properties were owned by groups like the one in Georgia was owned by a group with ties to Russia. So there's a lot to dig into there, and I hope they do.
This is the kickback. The Geo Group and Core Civic gave $2.8 million to the Trump's 2024 campaign. This is Trump's kickback to them for staying with them. They both gave $500,000 to the inaugural committee. Pam Bondi was a registered lobbyist for Geo Group in her previous life. So this is how intertwined these people are in enriching one another.
Diana Boyd asks a question, Xander, about when will Defiance HQ be coming back? And for those of you who don't know what that is, this was a beta effort that we put in place to test out a sort of different hub for folks to be able to use to keep track of ways to push back against the madness, like the story that we've been talking about. And the short answer, Diana, is, well, we're working on the right way to deploy that to the masses. Is we've taken a lot of data from that initial effort, and we're hoping to build it into eventually a new build and a relaunch of our website. But I'll just say, and Xander, you can correct me if I'm wrong, it's kind of fallen down our list a little bit because we're a tiny team, and every week we're announcing new actions to fight back against the fascism. And so we want to get there. We want to improve it. It's just we've only had so much bandwidth.
Yep. I want to give Just Tan Not Orange a shout out on the Pam Bondi intel, by the way. I forgot to give a shout out. That was someone in our comments to let me know that Pam Bondi was lobbyist. Shout out. I just had to go confirm it. Yeah, I have it on our list. It's just that fascism keeps supplanting and it keeps getting skipped over on our to-do list. But we're gonna there's versions of it that we should try to light up as soon as possible. I think a central home for all of our actions. So in case you miss an email or you need to go back somewhere, we probably can put that in place relatively quick. Get the calendar on Defiance.org somewhere as well. People liked having that available to them. So there's pieces of that we can start adding back. But these AI tools, and I was using some of these AI tools in building the what they call an MVP in tech, the minimum viable product. They're great for that scale. But then when you try to go from 100 to 100,000, they oftentimes break. They're not really built for that. You need to get real engineers behind, involved. And so I think that's kind of the biggest hurdle, is going from that MVP that worked for 100 people to something that can be, utilized by hundreds of thousands.
A question in the chat for Maritza from Anne. Anne asks, and we'll make this our final question for the day. Maritza, when you went to Social Circle, I believe you said a lot of the residents knew nothing about the facility. Do you think a postcard campaign would be helpful to let the surrounding residents know when DHS buys a facility?
I love this question, Anne. I think, yes, it would be the short answer. People in Social Circle, in the actual city of Social Circle, definitely knew about the facility, but they didn't quite understand what was going to be happening there. Like, most people did not know that there would be 10,000 people, detainees housed there. Most people didn't understand that the federal government paid $128+ million for that warehouse. Most people did not understand that the city of Social Circle will be losing out on $1 million in estimated taxes on that facility each year when they approved the permits to build that distribution warehouse. So I think those kind of details are important. But what I would say is, postcard writing campaign for the community, but also the communities around it. Because when I went 15 minutes down the road to Covington, nobody, people in that town, I actually was a little worried about them. They didn't even know Social Circle existed on a map. 15 miles away, 15 minutes away in the car. So I think that's really critical too. And that was part of why we went down there and did that reporting. And I did that reporting with the Save America movement, who I partner with on so many projects. And that was the whole goal, is they said, we are not going to have another situation Like what happened in Europe during World War II when people say, I had no idea that was happening.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so important. And that's why we go down and that's why we do the work. And I think when you hear about these facilities, not only just a postcard writing campaign is great, but gosh, if you know anybody who even lives in that state, call them. Text them, get in touch with them, because I preach about the bubbles and the algorithms all the time, but people are very much like, I was at, Brandy Carlisle at the Gorge this weekend. My whole feed right now is Brandy Carlisle and Gorge content. That's what happens. That's what they do. These companies, these social media companies. So you got to stay engaged and connected offline as well.
Well, friends, that is our show for the day. I will tell you, unfortunately, the mayor of Newark, New Jersey, is not going to be able to join us. We have a technical problem in getting him on. We are going to have him on the program here soon. We will try for another day this week so we can talk about the efforts underway to shine a light inside Delaney Hall. And that may be they have to kick open the doors and turn on the flashlight. So we'll see what their plans are, and we will have the mayor back here soon. In the meantime, if you are not following Maritza and listening to her Grounded podcast with Senator John Tester, well, then you're dead to us. And that's the official word.
It gets rougher every day.
It gets worse every day. We're going to start threatening people's families. You should be following. It's a fantastic program, and we're lucky to have Maritza when we do. But please make sure that you are subscribing and listening over that direction, and make sure that you join us tomorrow, if and only if you are a Defiance.org member, because tomorrow Defiance Daily is off the air for the general public because it is our monthly member meeting. If you are a member of Defiance.org, tomorrow you will get an email in the morning that says sign up to join us via Zoom so we can have a private conversation about all of the ways we are planning to fight back against the corruption we are seeing in Washington, D.C. and beyond. So mark your calendars tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern. If you are a Defiance.org member, we will have that monthly member meeting where we will take your feedback on what we take on next. That's the plan, folks. And if you are not a member, what are you doing? Come join us. And if you don't, then see us back here Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern for another episode. As always, friends, thank you so much for joining the program. And in the meantime, stay loud, stay brave, and stay together.